Let's raise the big questions then and widen this debate. The Supreme Court verdict, is it a big blow to the Modi government that has stood by these bonds? Will the government take an ordinance route? How to check black money in politics? What will flush out cash really from our political system? How to make the poll funding system more transparent? These are some of the questions. Joining me in the studio is one of the men of the moment, Professor Tralochan Shastri, Chairman, Association for Democratic Reforms, that has been pushing for transparency in elections. Subhash Chandra Garg, former Finance Secretary, worked closely with Arun Jaitley when this scheme was being conceptualized. Vishwajit Bhattacharya, former Additional Solicitor General, joins us. We'll get the legal view from him. Rohan Gupta is Congress spokesperson, joining us. Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, former Chief Election Commissioner, and Rajat Sethi, political commentator, close to the right. The BJP is not willing today to come on this story. I just also want to request our guests to keep their intervention short because we have limited time. But I want to raise, before we come to the guests, just give our viewers just how the donations have taken place via electoral bonds between 2017-18 and 2022-23. Look at the numbers in crores. The BJP got 6,566.13. This is as per Supreme Court. Congress got 1,123. The TMC, interestingly, got 1,092.98. The BJD 774. DMK 616. TRS 383. YSRCP 382. So some of the regional parties got a lot of funding, but the BJP well ahead of the rest. AAP 94.29, 101.38 was the Shiv Sena, NCP 63.75, JDS 48.78, JDU 24.4, others 31.1. This is the source, is the Supreme Court verdict. Let's get straight first cracking into the debate at this moment, because Tralochan Shastri, I'll start with you. You believe this is a day to smile, a historic day. The voters' right to know has been announced. Is that the reason why you're celebrating? Because many believe it's not going to change the system of cash funding our elections.
It's a day to celebrate. It stems the rot. It doesn't solve all the problems. And the problem of black money was there before the electoral bonds. It was there during the electoral bonds. And it is still there today.
So what should we be celebrating today, according to you?
See, this transparency which had been blocked, and we don't know what happens behind closed doors, and things could have gone from bad to worse. The Supreme Court has put a check on that, so now we are back to a more transparent system.
You're back to a more transparent system, but just let me bring in Dr. Qureshi on that. Dr. Qureshi, do you share the optimism that we are back to a more transparent system? There are those who fear that corporates now will simply not give money by check as they did under electoral bonds because they didn't want their names disclosed. Now, with their names being disclosed, they'll be reluctant to give money by check, especially to the opposition.
Well, I'll agree with Professor Shastri, but with a modification that even earlier, before the bond, there was no transparency, and ADR itself was protesting about it because 70% of all donations were reported to be in cash, which was not transparent, which is what the bond scheme tried to tackle. However, it is very important for us to recall the speech of the finance minister when he introduced it through the budget speech. His very first sentence is very important to remember. He said, without transparency of political funding, free and fair elections are not possible. Very good. That's what we have been saying. Second sentence also equally good, that for 70 years we have failed to achieve that transparency. Now we expected the third sentence to bring in transparency. It did just the opposite. It said now we will have electoral bond, and the impact of it was that whatever transparency which then existed would be done away with. And what was the transparency then? That any donation of more than 20,000 rupees, just 20,000 rupees, was to be reported to the Election Commission. Election Commission would certify that report, and on that basis, they will get income tax exemption. Now 20 crores, 2,000 crores, anything is a secret. Now is that the transparency which they tried to bring in?
So you're saying this electoral bond scheme would have worked provided it had been made transparent. If what was given to State Bank of India, the donors' names would have been revealed. It would have been the ideal way to actually work the system. Subhash Chandra Garg, as someone who was working with Arun Jaitley on this scheme, was that the flaw in the system? That you told corporates, you can give these bonds through State Bank of India, your names won't be disclosed. But the government could have access to the names, no one else would.
See, this was the main feature of the scheme. And you need to contrast it with what the system was prevalent earlier, which was a complete opaque system. The corporates were giving donations to the political parties, but they were giving it by sort of converting it into cash and then breaking it to all numerous donations of less than 20,000 rupees each. So that was an opaque system, which the government of the day tried to make it more transparent. It's not a fully transparent system, but more transparent system that you are making donations from your KYC compliant bank account. The political party is receiving it into their bank account and then spending it by way of check. So it's a...
no, but what stopped you, if I may ask Mr. Garg, from telling the corporates that or telling State Bank of India that every year you will have to disclose the names of the individuals who've given the money through electoral bonds? That would have sorted out the problem.
So that is the simple clinching factor. If you do this, then this scheme is nothing different than the earlier Company Act scheme, which was prevalent there, where you made the donations by disclosing to whom you are giving. And that was not working.
No, it was not working, therefore, because, Mr. Garg, sorry to press you on this, because corporates did not want their names disclosed. The truth of the matter is, that's the really nub of it. Corporates don't want to disclose to political parties, don't want to donate if their names are disclosed. Am I correct? That's the difference between India and America.
So that is the precise problem which was being tried to be solved. If you have this as a problem, that the corporates are not willing to sort of disclose their names, and that is why the scheme was inoperative. If you have the same feature in the electoral bond,
right,
the electoral bond scheme would also be non-starter.
Okay, let me come to specifics. Vishwajit Bhattacharya, I want short, sharp, two legal answers from you. Number one, can the government go and pass an ordinance striking down what the Supreme Court has done? Is that a possibility before the Lok Sabha elections? Do you see that happening? Yes or no?
The government will try its best. Government will try its best to get over this inconvenient judgment, but government will fail.
No, so is the ordinance route possible?
Ordinance route, you see, because Article 123 of the Constitution of India, all that the government has to do is the Union Cabinet will have to sit and send its recommendation to the President, and the President will sign. Now, then the matter goes to court. And after this kind of an emphatic verdict by a 5-judge bench, historic verdict, brilliant verdict, I think the government will fail in court again.
Okay, number two legal point. There are corporates who donated under this electoral bond scheme on the basis that their names would not be disclosed. Now the Supreme Court is saying names will have to be put up on a website of the ECI. Can therefore the government or indeed some of these corporates go and say, look, this is a violation of the commitment or the promise of the original scheme. You can't suddenly now disclose our names. Can they say that?
There is no right higher than the majesty of the Supreme Court 5-judge bench's order. It is a constitutional command articulated by the highest constitutional court of the country. This argument is as sort of frivolous as a petty contractual right.
Can they take a review? Can they seek a review on this basis? Can they seek a review of this order on this basis?
Of course they will review, and it will emphatically, it will be thrown out. It should be thrown out with exemplary costs.
But they can go for a review.
They can go for a review. They will go for a review, and they will face another defeat.
Okay. Let's come therefore to I've kept those who have more political views to the end. Rohan Gupta, you first. The Congress is celebrating. The truth of the matter is that it appears to me that the celebration may well be premature, because let's assume that the names come out. You will then have to show that there is a quid pro quo in those specific names. What if you are not able to prove that? What it might actually result is that in future the opposition parties will get even lesser money through the check route, now that names may have to be disclosed. Nobody wants to give money to a party they think is losing.
See, absolutely not, Rajdeep. It's not about, celebration. From day one, from the time this scheme was announced, Congress was against that because it is against constitution. It is against the right of voter to know who is funding which political party. And the way this scheme was designed, I think is a big tight slap on the arrogance of BJP. This is a big tight slap on their so-called fight against corruption. Modi ji was speaking against corruption yesterday, a day before in Abu Dhabi. And see, this is the biggest example of corruption by BJP.
What is the corruption? What is I asked this to Mr. Sibbal. I'm asking you, what is the corruption? The corruption under the scheme, corporates could give money through bonds without their names being revealed. Correct? What is the corruption?
I'll tell you what is the corruption here. See, when, according to this scheme, the recipients can be known only by SBI and it is not available in public domain. The way this government has functioned, it stops the right of the people. Suppose the Congress party is opposition party. We know what happens to people who support Congress party. Do you feel that if this scheme is like this, people will support Congress party or even if they want to donate? No. Because SBI, the information is available to SBI and the way this government is functioning, we never know whether they can access the information from SBI. On other side, BJP, which has collected more than 65% through electoral bond, there is no disclosure. So people can completely openly donate without just getting into radar of the people.
Okay.
At least people will know that, okay, these are the people who have given donation to BJP and these are the political benefits they have got in terms of contracts, in terms of the deals, whatever they get. Obviously, there is a correlation between them.
Okay.
There is absolutely no correlation.
Let me bring in Rajat Sethi on that. Rajat Sethi, prima facie, it appears that the electoral bond scheme could have involved quid pro quos which were not being made available to the public, and that's why number of people are celebrating that you need transparency in the system. The voter has the right to know who is contributing to whom. To that extent, it is the BJP government scheme has been ruled unconstitutional. It is therefore a slap on the face of the government.
Let me burst the celebratory balloon. Nobody in fact, any aspect, any stakeholder in the ecosystem stands to gain out of it. Any kind of a retrospective step is in itself a travesty of justice, in my humble opinion. If the law of the land today says that, my names would be anonymous, tomorrow if one entity goes up, a constitutional entity says that no, retrospectively I'll go and change, that is travesty. That is against natural justice, and I humbly disagree with the Honorable Supreme Court on this. Next, look at, all of you have already discussed this point. Through the electoral bonds, a little bit of tinkering that could have been possibly be done was to remove that information from the SBI, put it either with the RBI or with a constitutionally independent body like the Election Commission or the Supreme Court itself. And what Supreme Court actually did was they threw the baby along with the bathwater. They could have ideally gone in and tinkered with the structure so that the information asymmetry that was there with the SBI holding onto that information could have gone to somebody who could have been a trustworthy organization of not sharing that information with anybody. Now here in this process, we've been thrown back 5-7 years ago when the state of affairs was such that there was no transparency whatsoever. So we are stuck in that mode where the election, where you will continue to parties will continue to receive cash. No corporate entity would come out in the public domain and would want their name to be acknowledged with any party. Today, you associate with the conservative parties, they might be pushed back even nationally, internationally. There might be a lot of liberal governments around the world which might go against the corporate donors, conservative donors in India. So it will have international repercussions as well. So I don't see.
So you actually made a point that you believe the baby has been thrown out with the bathwater. Quick response, Rohan Gupta, and I'll go around the table again. Quick response from you to that. That actually cash will be back. That's my point. The worry is good that bonds have to be made transparent, but we could go back to the worst of the cash system.
I don't agree with that. I think when transparency is there, anybody wants to bring cash, obviously they are against the public domain. It's not that easy. But here today, if it is quid pro quo, people don't know. People don't know who have funded BJP, what are the benefits they have taken.
But I can get a quid pro quo through cash also. I put my money in cash and I will get a quid pro quo. You're telling me there were no quid pro quos before 2017? when the
not saying
Congress
that.
was in power?
I am not saying that. I am saying that even if there is quid pro quo, it is known to the people. Today we don't have under electoral bond scheme. You don't have any mechanism to know who has done what and who has benefited out of it. So that's the difference here. At least there is a transparency. We
Can I-
know that in order to correct the system.
No,
obviously it is
1 minute.
going to be a process.
Okay, well, 1 minute. Talochan Shastri, that's the fear. As someone who has done, extensively campaigned for transparency, good that transparency comes into the system. But the court has said the bond system itself is unconstitutional. As a result, we are now in a vacuum ahead of the Lok Sabha elections. Who knows, the BJP already has got its funding organized. Maybe some of the regional parties in power already have their funding organized. How is this going to change anything substantially?
It's not. You see, there is a big myth floating around saying that somehow electoral bonds had removed the cash donations. Our own data shows that only one part of the donations received by political parties was through the electoral bonds.
How much percentage roughly would be?
Sir, it is like the tip of the iceberg because cash...
10%, 20%?
Anybody's
bonds?
guess.
6,000 crores BJP received through bonds in the last 7 years.
Let me finish.
They must be spending 50, 60,000 crores.
No, I'm not talking about any political party.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that the cash in circulation, according to the RBI, has doubled since demonetization. So black money has not disappeared. And the black money is not only operating in real estate. It is operating in the political system as well. Political parties before 2017 got black money. After 2000, when electoral bonds were there, they got black money. And they will continue to get black money. The problem of black money is a red herring when we are discussing the issue of electoral bonds. It has nothing to do with electoral
So
bonds.
what changes come tomorrow? Or what changes come March 13th when all these names are put up on the ECI
Nothing.
website?
The public, in a democracy, the information is very vital and people will know who is funding who.
So that's the public's
The
right
other
to know.
thing, they're
Yes.
saying that the corporates are afraid. I am not agreeing with that. You see, as somebody has said, it's a Supreme Court judgment. The government and the SBI at any time knew who was funding whom. It's the public which we did not know.
Right.
So making it public doesn't make any difference.
The
government always knew that. So what, we're just raising...
Okay, let me bring in at this moment Dr. Qureshi. Dr. Qureshi, what changes come tomorrow? I'm sorry to sort of prick the balloon a bit. My worry as a cynic is that nothing will change. If anything, cash will grow. That's what my fear is.
Rajdeep, I have been writing and I've been saying that even if electoral bond scheme was an improvement on cash donations, all that we wanted that the donor and recipient should be disclosed, which was a 30-second decision for the government, which they never bothered. If they had done it, we would not have come to this stage. Secondly, the real issue is being skirted. There are alternative solutions if they are sincere about it. Alternative solution is start a national election fund where every corporate will pay by check without any fear of reprisal, and from that fund give to the political parties based on their performance. This is a suggestion which has been on the table for 20 years. Nobody talks about it because they are not
So not
sincere.
state funding. Let me get that clear from you, Dr. Qureshi. You're saying not state funding, create a national election fund, political party, corporates give it to the fund, not to a specific political party. Then the election commission, based on the performance of a party, distributes it. Am I correct?
Exactly.
But then the BJP, which gets 350 seats, just a minute. If the BJP gets 350 seats, Congress gets 50, are we saying BJP gets 7 times more out of that fund then?
No, absolutely, because it is based on performance, and it is this kind of system is working in 70% of the countries of the world. So if it can work elsewhere, why can't it be tried here?
Subhash Chandra Garg, if it works elsewhere, here we have a concrete solution being offered. National Election Fund. All corporates are free, individuals are free to donate them, their names will be disclosed, but they're not giving it to a specific political party. That's done by the ECI based on the performance of a party. Is that workable according to you, Mr. Garg?
So if it is voluntary, no donations will come. If it is made compulsory like corporate social funding, that you make 1% of your profits into this fund, this will come. but that is like a tax, as the social corporate responsibility is. And secondly, if you distribute that in the ratio of what the seats there are, the electoral bond share is not worse than that share. If the BJP has got about 57 to 60% of total funding, that is precisely what it'll get, or maybe more, based on today's funding. So that solution looks better, but actually is not going to make any difference.
You're saying corporates will not voluntarily fund into a national election fund. Why? Why will they not voluntarily fund?
Why should they fund? The corporate funding is precisely because there is a quid pro quo. They won't benefit. Why does all the money go to the party in power, whether it is the central government or the state governments? You have seen your...
So you're saying, you're making a huge point. You're saying corporates in this country will not fund unless they're getting a quid pro quo. Am I correct? They're not doing it out of any generosity of their heart. Yes, Dr. Qureshi, quick response from you.
Yeah. The corporates will donate because there will be income tax concession, income tax in the name of income tax relief, all kinds of donations come. So give a very decent tax relief and they will all flock to it.
You're saying they will flock to it. Rajat Sethi, do you agree with that? That maybe, we need alternatives. Let's be honest. Today's Supreme Court judgment should push the system to look for better alternatives.
When the alternatives are being discussed, Rajdeep, let me also throw in the possible US alternative, wherein you make all lobbying legal. Let the corporates come out and say that I'm lobbying for so-and-so policy, and I'm going to support whichever party is standing with me on this lobbying effort. I mean, that too is working in one of the oldest democracies. I mean, if others are setting an example, then so be it. Because right now, all lobbying is happening without the citizens coming to know. And if Supreme Court is legitimizing the fact that the public should know under right to information, then so is the public, willing to know about what kind of lobbying is happening, what kind of quid pro quo is happening in every single transaction. By an extension, then corporate lobbying should also come out as a legal sort of an alternative.
Okay, so you're looking at a more US-like model. Corporate lobbying should be open, transparent.
This is what Supreme Court intended to say indirectly.
Indirectly. Bishwajit Bhattacharya, your view, is there a solution? The Supreme Court has left us hanging without a solution.
No. Supreme Court has very clearly recorded what Mr. Garg stated. The Solicitor General could not deny that the corporates pay only for quid pro quo. It has been recorded. I have read the entire judgment, Rajdeep. And Justice Khanna's judgment very clearly talks about money laundering under the Money Laundering Act. So therefore, what Supreme Court has done, Supreme Court has tremendous apprehensions about the nexus between corporates and...
How are you going to prove it? Mr. Bhattacharya, the Supreme Court is not going to... How are you going to prove a quid pro quo? Let's clear... all the names are disclosed. Let's say all the names are disclosed on the 13th of March. How will you prove there's a quid pro quo? And the fact is, as Kapil Sibal said, it's not just the government. There are opposition parties who've also got money. How will you prove a quid pro quo?
I am not in politics. It may be any party. It doesnn matter.
How will you prove a quid pro quo?
No. The question, it's a question of proof will come. You see, when names come on 13th of March, and I'm optimistic the names will come. It is a question of survival of the rule of law. It is the question of implementing the judgment of the Supreme Court. By 6th March, State Bank of India has been directed to give all the names of the donors and donees to the Commission.
No, sir, but I take your point. But Rohan Gupta, what if the names are those who've donated both to the BJP and Congress? They may have donated more to the BJP, but they'll also donate to Congress. They'll also donate to state governments headed by the regional parties. How will you say quid pro quo? Congress is saying scam. You're going to have to prove the scam, no?
Absolutely. See, Rajdeep, our point is very simple. The rules should be applicable to each and every party. That's why we were against electoral bond. There was no transparency. I agree. Supreme Court has not given the solution, but the solution is not in hand of Supreme Court. What they have commented that the scheme which is introduced by BJP government is not helping it. It is going from worst to worst, and that is why it is stopped. So I think it is upon, if we are in India, as all political parties together, we have to work together to find out transparent situation. But
no, that's the problem. None of you want genuine electoral reforms. You see, the problem is none of you actually, all of you at various stages have benefited from an opaque system.
So Rajdeep, we are definitely interested, and the proposal of national fund was passed into 2023 Chhattisgarh Congress conclave. It was already done. So we are there. We are open
So
for the
okay, you're open.
But then intention of BJP government needs to be there to come together and have equal terms for all.
Okay, do you believe that
Electoral fund scheme? It is a clear-cut evidence that BJP wanted to do corruption in organized way without, knowing the people, letting people know about the real contribution.
So we will know on March 13, doodh ka doodh, pani ka pani in terms of names. But I want to know from you, Tarlochan Shastri, do you believe a national election fund is at all a solution?
It is worth considering. You can also have public funding, and you need to go back to a system of limits on funding which were there earlier, because one company can buy the entire parliament. They have that kind of money. In India, forget about the US. So we need to have limits, because undue influence of big money on politics is not democratic.
Sir, but you come from a state like Karnataka, where we know, for example, cash rules. I come from a state like Maharashtra, where cash rules, real estate, mining, these are the areas from which political parties are getting their cash, from which they're using the funding. So, are we living in a sort of idealized world where we believe that if we are able to create a national election fund, cash will stop, there will be a level, this word level playing field. How do you create a level playing field?
The system does not want cash to stop.
That's the point.
They don't want the cash to stop, neither the people, nor the corporates, nor the political parties. And let me state on record,
yes,
these electoral bonds, whatever the public statement of the government, there was no intention to remove black money from the economy. They knew very well that black money will continue. Whatever system you have, you'll have black. If you want to attack black money, that's a separate debate. You think the government doesn't know who's got black money?
So you're saying do not confuse the larger debate of cash and black money in elections with the need for transparency in the way the electoral bonds...
Absolutely. We are just mixing up things. You're absolutely right.
Okay, so a final word from you, Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, as a former Chief Election Commissioner. Are you going to sleep well tonight with a smile on your face, believing that there is hope that the Supreme Court has given us? Or will we come back again, as Mr. Garg seems to be smiling, that the reality is very different on the ground? We are living in an idealized world, that suddenly overnight cash will go and now corporates will be happy to have their names disclosed.
No, of course, I'm delighted, and although my complaint against the court is that they took 6 years, it was the issue of extreme national importance, because the corruption in election is the mother of all corruption in the country, and taking 6 years, but in any case, better late than never. The fact that it was a constitution bench of 5, they examined it in their detail, they questioned everybody, and they reserved the judgment for 3 months, which means they studied the pros and cons. I think it is an excellent judgment, and I'm sure whatever fears you have.
Okay, but Mr. Garg, I'll give you 20 seconds as someone who conceptualized this scheme. Go ahead.
It's a Pyrrhic victory for the transparency.
That's right. It's a Pyrrhic victory for transparency, but Pyrrhic victory or not, we need to at least celebrate the fact that the court has intervened to try and stop what was seen as an aberration, as a distortion to the system, and the public's right to know has been enhanced. I do hope that when that list comes out, there will be even more debates on the kind of funding that's been done, who's given funding to which party, and yes, what benefits did they get as a result. We'll leave that for another day. Today our focus has been on a landmark verdict passed by the Supreme Court. Thank you all very much to my guests for joining us.